My name is Casper Danwell. I am a goldsmith living in the bustling capital of Cornerstone, and tomorrow with the daylight raiders, I'll pull the biggest heist in the history of the country. If you're reading this, then you have already begun to wonder how much you know about me is true. After all, to most I am but a humble barman, working in the Nightwind Inn. How could any of this be true? Well, the thing is, my life here was a lie. All of it. The people in it weren't real to me. The friends I made, simple-minded man I pretended to be. That was all fake. You are reading this because for the first time I have chosen to be real to the people in this life. More importantly, you are reading this because my life went just as planned. 15 years ago I came to the capital a man who had lost everything. Before that I lived in a small city in eastern Cornerstone. My life was good then. That life was not a lie. I was rich and married. Had a son, I was respected. In such small cities, you'd be surprised how popular common vocations like goldsmithing could get. Life was good. It was perfect, really, till it wasn't. I had lashed out and killed my wife and her lover when I discovered her infidelity. The news of it spread like wildfire, and the love and admiration I got from the people of the city quickly turned to hate. Soon I was arrested and asked to face judgment before the court of the city. On that day, a large crowd gathered outside the court. I was spat on and pelted with stones, even by those who knew the truth. None of them stood by me. The court wasn't fair either. I lost my son to my wife's family, and 1/3 of my properties and wealth went with him. I was sentenced to 10 years in prison and was banned for life from practicing my vocation in the city. Maybe if I had been married to a different woman, that punishment would have been enough. But I wasn't, and for her family, the only punishment good enough for me was my death. A prison guard for a family friend was all it took. I was beaten half to death and left at the mouth of the sea at dawn. The sea never took me, fortunately, and at the shore I lay hungry and bruised till I was well enough to stand and walk. I never went back to that city. I was dead to them, and it was better that way. This story is not to make you pity me or to give reason for why I decided to lead the secret life of a royal seal forger. Everyone living in the low streets of the capital knows the city for the torture that it is, and that is reason enough. Still, I lived a commoner's life and worked the lowly job of a barman in a shitty inn for 7 long years. The daylight raiders you all fear, the dreaded group of thieves and fraudsters, they never found me. I found them. I built them. This story is only necessary to remind you of it all, to tell you how I did it. The man who robbed the king. The story will be told for years to come. Who better than the man who did it to tell the story? When I walked into the capital, I knew then and there that I would never make back the wealth I had lost. The capital was no place for a 50-year-old goldsmith like myself. Goldsmithing is a dime a dozen kind of profession here. I knew I was better than most, but before my work would gain enough recognition, I would be too old to enjoy the wealth that came with it. At first, I thought I could live without, and for 2 years I tried to. But after 6 bartending jobs, I realized how much of a joke that was. This life wasn't for me. Still, I did nothing. I continued in my miserable job as a barman, hopelessly waiting for the end of shifts and preparing for the next. That was until I met Baldwin the inspector, however. His job was to collect taxes from small businesses and to ensure they were up to standard in all ramifications. In truth, he was just another miserable citizen, only he was put in a position where he could make life worse for others. There was something peculiar about Inspector Baldwin, however. He had a royal seal. It meant he never paid for drinks when he came by the Nightwind Inn. All he did was flash it and he got as many as he wanted. I never understood the workings of larger cities, but this was by far the strangest thing I had ever seen. I trailed him for weeks and I saw him flash this seal on many occasions, and he got whatever he wanted free of charge. A meal, transport, or a drink at the inn. He never paid a thing. The royal seals were lifelong symbols of the king's authority, people said when I asked. Whoever owned the royal seal never paid for anything in the capital. There were regular royal seals that anyone in Cornerstone could get, and then there were special royal seals that gave its bearer absolute command over everything but the royal family and their retinues. Those only existed amongst the higher-ups. To earn a royal seal, one had to perform exemplary deeds for the king. Families also inherited royal seals. That was how special they were. Inherited or otherwise, I never got to know how Inspector Bowden got his seal. All that I needed was to take his seal, and I never thought twice about it. If I could get his seal, my life would be better than what it was. It was all I knew, and so I started timing his visits to the Night's Wind Inn. The opportunity presented itself 6 weeks after I started to watch him. It was just another night for him, drunk to stupor from liquor he never paid a copper for. I waited for him in an alley close to the inn and attacked him there. Fights happened so often in the low streets that people hardly paid attention to those who fought. The inspector was too drunk to put up a fight that it ended quickly, and I took the seal. The next day, different rumors about Inspector Bowden being attacked flew around. Some said it was his wife that had him beaten. Others said it was a person he owed money. All stories funny and far from the truth as I'd like it. We never saw him again, and I got to work soon after. The seal was a confusing item, a very delicate medallion with bold, intricate designs on its surface. It took months before I could make anything like it. I didn't have a forge to work as much as I'd like, so making them cost me a lot every time I tried. I had to pay the owner a heavy price to keep his mouth shut and to use his forge. With the salary I earned, my trials were few and far between. Still, I kept at it. After 3 years, I made my first identical counterfeit. For days, I stared at it, wondering what to do. Not what to do with it, but how I could use it without being found out. The consequences of discovery were dire, to say the least. I wasn't the first person to try and forge a royal seal. Death was a damn too mild for what they did to offenders. I remember how I felt the first day I used the royal seal. I traveled nearly to the other end of the capital so no one knew who I was. I remember the frown the food vendor wore when I showed him the seal. He looked like he wanted to beat me and throw me out. It wasn't for the reason I thought though. Nobody liked to sell free of charge. As for the seal, it worked fine. Inspector Bowden, whose seal my counterfeit was based off of, had a low-ranked seal. It would only get food, rum, and rides, sometimes clothes if the traders didn't know the law. If I wanted something big, I needed higher-ranked seals, and I started searching for them. Soldiers, officers who patrolled, inspectors higher ranked than Baldwin, royal guards, and noble families were the most common owners of the type of royal seals I was looking for. After much search, I found a certain royal guard who fit the description. Finding the men to rob his home was the easy part. What I didn't account for was the fight that ensued and the death of the royal guard on the eve of his own wedding. The night the capital has come to know as the Grey Evening is something I do regret and feel sorry for. After all, we would never have come under the palace's eye if it hadn't happened. We burned his home so the officers never knew what was stolen from him, and we waited for months to let the heat of his death die down. My men became more careful after that, and we earned the title of daylight raiders. We were quieter now. We stole from foreign traders, nobles, and anyone who fell for my counterfeit. The rest you all know. Years of cunning and thievery have made me the wealthy man I once was, maybe even a greater man, and by tomorrow, no one would ever find us. I am not ashamed, no, I am proud of every bit of it. Tomorrow I shall rob the palace itself of his own gold, and then you would all marvel at the manner of man I was. Some might even rejoice. You see, dear king, many of your subjects hate you and the life you give us, so much so that finding people willing to steal from you, almighty king, was by far the easiest part of all of this. They obey you because they fear you and are bound to this wretched place. But I am free now, free to do as I will. Goodbye, Cornerstone. Let's never meet again. Reported as written in scrolls found amongst the bodies of the Daylight Raiders gang killed at the Bluestone Bridge today. Scribe stopped reading, and the king and his court laughed.